Have you ever wondered how much time you spend complaining? It's a question that may seem trivial at first, but when you start to think about it, it becomes shockingly relevant. Complaining, you see, is not just an occasional venting mechanism, it has become an integral part of our everyday conversations. We complain about the weather, the traffic, our jobs, our relationships, the food, the government, and the list goes on. Sometimes it seems as if complaining has become our default mode of communication. But have you ever paused to consider how this habitual grumbling impacts your life? Complaining is more than just an expression of dissatisfaction or frustration. It's a habit that can slowly seep into our consciousness, coloring our perception of the world. Without even realizing it, we might start to see everything through a lens of negativity, focusing more on what's wrong rather than what's right. This habit of complaining can affect not just our mood, but our relationships as well. Imagine being surrounded by constant negativity, by people who always seem to find fault in everything. It can be draining, can't it? Yet when we complain, we're essentially doing the same thing to others. We're dragging them into our sphere of negativity, potentially straining our relationships and isolating ourselves. Moreover, the habit of complaining can also affect our overall quality of life. As we allow negativity to dominate our thoughts, we might start to feel more stressed, more anxious, and less satisfied with our lives. We might miss out on the beauty and the opportunities around us simply because we're too busy complaining about what's wrong. In essence, complaining is not just a harmless habit, it's a cycle of negativity that can subtly, yet profoundly impact our lives. It can alter our perception, strain our relationships, and diminish our happiness. So, the next time you find yourself about to complain, remember this. The world is not perfect and neither are we. But instead of complaining about what's wrong, shouldn't we focus more on appreciating what's right? Complaining might seem like a harmless habit, but it can have profound effects on our lives. I want to share a story about a friend of mine, let's call him John. John was a man whose life seemed to be painted in hues of discontent. His job, a steady 9-to-5, was a source of constant frustration. He'd often grumble about his boss, his colleagues, his workload, and the monotony of his tasks. At home, he'd vent about his relationship, his partner's quirks and habits becoming a bone of contention more often than not. His life, he'd sigh, was not what he had envisioned. His complaints, like a never-ending tune, played in the background of his life. Yet it was not only John who was affected by his constant negativity. His relationships strained under the weight of his discontent. Friends started to recede, hesitant to be around his perpetual pessimism. At work, his potential for advancement diminished. His negative attitude was a barrier that held him back from seizing opportunities. Then, there came a turning point. One day, John found himself alone, isolated by his complaints. It was a bitter pill to swallow, the realization that his constant grumbling was the architect of his solitude. He decided then and there, it was time for a change. John started to replace his complaints with gratitude. He acknowledged the stability his job offered, the camaraderie of his colleagues, the comfort of routine. He began to appreciate his partner's quirks, seeing them as the unique facets that made his partner who they were. He embraced his life with all its ups and downs as a journey worth traversing. The transformation was profound. His relationships flourished, his mood lifted, and opportunities at work started to present themselves. He was happier, more content. His life, once a canvas of complaints, was now a vibrant mosaic of gratitude and acceptance. John's life changed when he stopped complaining and started acting. What about yours? So, what exactly does complaining do to us? Complaining, while it may seem like a harmless venting mechanism, can actually be quite detrimental to our well-being. The first and most immediate impact of complaining is stress. Every time we complain, our body responds by releasing the stress hormone cortisol. High levels of cortisol can lead to a myriad of health problems, including high blood pressure, heart disease, obesity, and diabetes. But the effects of complaining go beyond the physiological. Complaining can also cultivate a mindset of resentment. When we complain, we're essentially focusing on what's wrong, what's unfair, or what we don't like about a situation, a person, or even ourselves. This negative focus can lead us to develop feelings of bitterness and resentment. Over time, this can strain our relationships, poison our outlook on life, and even affect our mental health. Moreover, complaining also fosters a negative outlook on life. By always looking at the glass as half empty, we condition ourselves to spot the negatives in every situation. This can lead to a life viewed through a lens of negativity, where we anticipate the worst and seldom appreciate the positives. But perhaps the most insidious effect of complaining is its ability to keep us stuck. When we complain, we're not taking action, we're not seeking solutions, we're not trying to change our circumstances. Instead, we're dwelling on the problem, wallowing in our dissatisfaction, and letting our power to change things slip through our fingers. This is the negative loop that complaining creates. It starts with a problem. Instead of taking action to solve the problem, we complain about it. The complaining leads to stress and negativity, which then makes the problem seem even bigger and more insurmountable. And so, we complain some more. It's a cycle that keeps us stuck, prevents us from growing, and bars us from living our best lives. In essence, complaining is a habit that harms us both physically and mentally. It fosters negativity, breeds resentment, and keeps us from taking action to improve our circumstances. Complaining keeps us stuck in a negative loop, preventing us from seeing the possibilities for change. So, how can we break this cycle of complaining? The Stoics had an answer. Stoicism, a philosophy born in the bustling heart of ancient Greece, holds a powerful key to tackling our complaining habit. The Stoics were not the type to sit around and grumble about the weather or their misfortunes. Instead, they cultivated a resolute attitude towards life's challenges, focusing on their reactions rather than the circumstances themselves. At the core of Stoicism lies the concept of control. The Stoics believed that we don't have command over many things in life, the weather, the traffic, other people's attitudes, and that fussing over these uncontrollable aspects is a pointless expenditure of our energy. However, they also believed that we do have control over one crucial thing: our responses. How we react to the world around us, how we perceive and interpret events, is within our power to control. And it is here, in the realm of our reactions, that the Stoics suggest we can curb our tendency to complain. Take, for instance, a sudden downpour on your way to an important meeting. A natural reaction might be to complain about your bad luck. But the Stoics would argue that the rain is out of your control. It's indifferent, it's not personal. What is within your control is how you react to it. You could choose to complain, or you could choose to accept it as a part of life and move on without letting it sour your mood or your day. Complaining, in essence, is a refusal to accept things as they are. It's a resistance to life's natural flow. But when we adopt a Stoic mindset, we learn to accept what we can't change and focus on what we can. This shift in perspective can free us from the endless cycle of dissatisfaction and negativity that complaining breeds. So the next time you find yourself on the brink of a complaint, remember the Stoics. Remember that you have the power to control your reactions, to choose acceptance over resistance. By focusing on what we can control and accepting what we can't, we can break the cycle of complaining. Now it's time to take action. The first step towards a complaint-free existence lies in practicing gratitude. Gratitude is the antidote to dissatisfaction. By focusing on what we have, rather than what we lack, we shift our perspective from scarcity to abundance. Start by acknowledging the good in your life. It could be something as simple as a warm cup of tea on a cold day, or something as profound as the love of your family. Make it a habit to express gratitude daily, and you will find less room for complaints. Next, redirect your energy towards solutions instead of problems. Complaining is often a passive response to a situation. It's easy to point out what's wrong, but it takes courage and effort to find a solution. The next time you catch yourself complaining, stop and ask, what can I do to change this situation? You might be surprised at how capable you are of affecting change. Another powerful tool is cultivating a positive mindset. This doesn't mean ignoring the negative aspects of life, but rather choosing to focus on the positives. The world is filled with both light and darkness, and it's up to us to decide which we pay attention to. When faced with a challenge, instead of dwelling on the difficulty, consider what you can learn from it. Every setback is an opportunity for growth if we choose to see it that way. Finally, remember that change is a process, not an event. Reducing the habit of complaining won't happen overnight. It requires patience, persistence, and a whole lot of self-compassion. Don't beat yourself up when you slip up. Instead, acknowledge the misstep and use it as a stepping stone on your journey towards a more positive life. Remember, the power to stop complaining and start living a more positive life is in your hands.